new study, nearly half of London office workers are nervous about returning to the workplace, and a third have struggled with their mental health since the start of the pandemic. Well, the National Day for Staff Networks, which is today, is a campaign that calls on London employers to collaborate with their staff and support colleagues as they return to the office. Well, Rasheed, a life coach who is part of the campaign, told me more.
The National Day for Staff Networks is a day which really celebrates the work that staff networks do up and down the country. And for those of the people who don't know about them, they're networks, they're groups of people, voluntary, get together to support others. So there's staff networks around race, around gender, around mental health, around pretty much everything, disability, in order to make work better for those people. It gives them a safe space, and they advocate on behalf of that particular group in order to make the workplace better and more effective for everybody.
What are the key reasons, do you think, as to why people are nervous to go back to the workplace, particularly with coronavirus numbers down? It's more about the stress of seeing people, isn't it?
I think there's so many things. It's been a really challenging year for so many people. People's mental health has been affected. There's some of the practical things around actually travelling and being in close contact. There's that thing about lots of people just not knowing what the workplace is necessarily going to be like. There's the trauma and stress that some people have felt from low level and high level from being at home all of the time. There's also lots of those kind of tech and other issues. I think there's a whole range of issues, and just that general aversion to something that was so normal, travelling into a workplace, that now seems for so many people so abnormal. So it's going to be very interesting to see how people feel about going back to work. And of course, it also has a disproportionate effect with people perhaps from poorer backgrounds, people with disabilities, people who've been suffering from mental health challenges and so on. So it's going to be interesting to see how this pans out. And employers need to be really mindful about that and supportive of their staff.
In the capital, what we're going to see is a lot of people working from home nowadays, even after the pandemic. What do you think is a good balance to achieve? Do you think that coming back into the workplace is very important?
I think that this is so interesting because everyone's so different. I think the magical thing about the year that we've had is it's made us realise that even in a city like London, there's all sorts of different ways of working. Lots of people before used to get chastised if they wanted to work from home. There was a real divide in terms of people who are home workers. Now we realise that you can work effectively in many, many different ways, whether you're in the workplace full-time or part-time. I think you're absolutely right. I think we're going to see far more flexible working. I think that many organisations are talking about perhaps people working at home for a couple of days a week and in the office a few days a week. I think it does depend hugely on the job that people do, and I think there is that slight divide between some of us who are lucky enough that we can do the work remotely and some people who can't. So I think employers need to be very mindful about that, and I think we're going to need to probably over the next few years reinvent the workplace. But of course many of us Londoners love the connections, we love being in the heart of the city and so on. So for many people it's going to be a great opportunity just to get back to meet people who they know, and also for people who perhaps have been working in the organisation for a year but they've never met. So I think we're all going to be on a steep learning curve in London over the next year or so.
Yeah. Would you say it is vital though that people come back into an environment where they can get some face-to-face contact, at least at some point during the week?
I think that yes, it's the short answer to that. I think wherever possible it's going to be good for that, because we are sociable human beings and we are going to need to be able to interact with people. I think that what is going to be equally important though is how is it that we learn to make working remotely as well as working in person work effectively. So we're going to need to make things like how we're connecting here seem far more natural and personable, as well as connecting with people in real time in the workplace. But I think ideally that would make sense, that we're in the workplace for part of the time and perhaps that we're at home for part of the time. But I think we need to also look very closely at those needs of people perhaps with disabilities, or perhaps where there might well be IT issues that people are, or the employers are expecting them to work for long periods of time at home, or where people's home circumstances may not work that well. So I think managers are going to have to really work flexibly, mindfully, and not force people into the situation that was happening before or in a new situation that might suit them, but may not actually be necessary for the work or may not work for all of their employees.
London's children